Hello there folks, I'm Dan Brown from Sort of Interesting, and today I'd like to talk about some of my cheap camping kit and the pros and cons of it being so cheap and not necessarily the best of qualities. Anyway, let's get stuck in. I thought I would film this out in the local woodland for a much nicer background for the video. However, that meant I had the worst possible pitching conditions of really loose, rotting, wet leaves on top of really damp, muddy ground beneath. So if we look at the tent first, which is often the best place to start when camping, I've got to say, it's not even properly branded, if I'm honest. I'll put a thing on screen now so that you can see what it's actually called on Amazon and the current time of publishing price. But when I bought it in 2022, it cost me £45. And for that price, I cannot fault it. I've spent literally a cumulative total of weeks in this thing sleeping. And at one point, I actually slept on a campsite for 7 consecutive nights in it. Broadly speaking, it's held up really well, and it's been in some fair old conditions of relatively high winds, certainly some significant downpours, and all in all, it's not really taken damage so much as it is the initial poor quality of the finishing has started to come apart. If that doesn't quite make sense, don't worry, I'm going to show you some of the issues close up later in this video. So let's have a closer look. As you can probably tell, it's not quite flat, it's not quite straight, and the ground is incredibly soft to be trying to put tent pegs in, so it wouldn't stand up to a stiff breeze at the moment, I'd say. However, the important thing is, it's shelter, it's somewhere dry, it's somewhere far warmer than being in the elements, protected from all the insects and goodness knows what else, and it's standing. So, what's next? These absolutely terrible camping mats. You can actually see where all of the pokey things in the ground have left a lasting imprint on them. So to be fair, I'd rather it be on those than my body. But they're cold. There's 2 actually wrapped up together here because they're so ridiculously thin. And what I end up having to do is use one as a full length one to try and smooth over some of the bumps, and fold one in half to try and give my heavier upper body a little bit of extra padding. But let's have a closer look. There's simply no getting away from it. They're really big and bulky to pack and transport. They only weigh about 150 grams each, so they're really light. But they just don't provide any real comfort or much protection from the ground beneath you at all, do they? Let's be honest. Look at that. Look how thin they are. That's 2 of them together. Anyway, moving on. So you may be able to hear there's a few dogs running loose around here at the minute. Maybe about 200 feet away. Luckily, between me and them, there's a stream that they're unlikely to cross. However, if they come up this side, it could get pretty crowded around here. Anyway, onto the sleeping bag, because this is the worst part. To be fair to the sleeping bag, it's not the worst part in terms of quality, it's just the least appropriate. It's just far too thin and light for camping on a windy hillside or in anything other than beautiful, warm summer weather. And we'll have a closer look at that in just a second as I'm inflating my little pillow here. But suffice to say, it's become standard practice for me camping in this tent with this sleeping bag to put my feet and lower legs into the rucksack as a miniature extra sleeping bag. How cool is this? I've got to say, I've never pitched a tent in such a public place before, and I felt unbelievably self-conscious as it was all going up. But weirdly, just like on the mountainside or in a proper campsite, sometimes it may feel chaotic getting the tent up, but now that it's up and I'm inside, it feels so cozy and calm. Oh, fantastic stuff. It's so weird, and I feel like it's blended in really well without any sort of extra disguise or putting some sticks up to break up the shape. Anyway, yeah. So there's our little camp, and here's some stats for you that will hopefully explain why I've got so much low quality and maybe inappropriate stuff. It's really light and it's really cheap, basically. So the tent, 1.3 kilograms and £45 cost. The sleeping bag, 1 kilogram and £22 cost a couple of years back. The camping mats, obviously, maybe a few quid each and 300 grams cumulative. And my little pillow cost about £8 and weighs about 100 grams. So that's literally less than 3 kilograms and less than 100 quid. But just as with the bag and the mats, as you've heard, there are problems with the other kit. For example, the tent wasn't finished correctly on the end of the zipper, and I accidentally unzipped both zips off, could only reattach one, and then had to melt the zipper ends together myself to stop it happening again in an emergency when I really needed that sheet closed. You can see we're starting to lose the stitching at the very top of the tent because so much tension often gets put on that. However, at least that's on the inner, so it's not affecting the waterproofness overall. One of the bigger issues, if you've got a lot of condensation, is that at the foot end, the sheets are so close together, it's almost impossible not to knock the outer sheet and have all of that condensation shaken off and dripping all over you. When it comes to my very cheap pillow, because it's such a cheap, smooth finish, I find if I put my head down sideways on it without putting something more cloth or material over it, my ear will lock like a vacuum seal against it, and it's particularly unpleasant and painful. So definitely a better pillow would massively increase my comfort. That's something I really do wish I'd spent a bit more money on. So yeah, watch this space. When it comes to the sleeping bag, it's just simply not suitable. It's just so thin. And after it's been used for the last 2 years or so, you can see if I keep folding it over and over and over, I can still crush it so thin in my hand that there's just nothing to it. So that's something that I seriously need to up my game for anything outside of warm weather camping, and believe me, I have felt that repeatedly. Just for a bit of fun before we see the packing up process, I wanted to just walk away from the tent and see how well it blends into the surroundings, and from this sort of distance I don't think it does too badly at all. If you consider that I would obviously be getting at least this far away from any paths, and there's of course people walking past who wouldn't be looking for a tent, I don't think there's much about it that's going to catch their eye and draw them in to look and say, "What was that in the woods?" It was an idiot in a tent, that's what it was. So here's another positive to this setup. It took me less than 12 minutes, while also doing it at a gentle pace for the sake of the camera, to go from a fully made up camp to literally everything packed away and having the backpack on my back and walking away and ruffling up the leaves on the ground to hide any evidence that I was ever there as well. So yeah, I really do like this kit, but you can also see why I definitely need to upgrade some of it. Also, I wore these light shoes just because I knew I'd be getting in and out and didn't want to be wrestling with all the laces on my boots. I wish I hadn't. Thank you so much for watching, my friends. This has been a look at some of my really cheap camping gear I've been using. If you want to help me upgrade some of this stuff, then please consider checking out my short books about life on a canal boat, or becoming a channel member or Facebook subscriber, depending on where you're viewing this video. Until the next time, no, thank you so much. Please do subscribe, check out my other videos for loads more from the great outdoors, and well, I hope to see you around soon. Keep it tent worthy, keep it interesting, and of course, my friends, farewell. I'd like to thank my YouTube channel members, my Facebook subscribers and PayPal supporters, and super thanks YouTube leavers as well, if that's a thing. A. Sanford, T. Seymour, The Yacht Captain, Fufarito, David D, Kaz G, and a mystery extra Facebook subscriber that didn't show up in the list. Thank you all very much. I hope you appreciate that this will all be going towards a bivvy bag, and then we'll see what stealth camping really looks like. See ya.